Supergirl flopping at the box office mean for the future of DCU? This is the last picture with Rahim Khan, and while I would love to say I told you so, and I don't think I actually said it, but in my heart of hearts, I felt that, all of the bluster and pronouncements that James Gunn and Peter Safran were kind of spewing heading into this, not just into Supergirl, but into sort of heading the DCU. I mean, all of that has, I hate to say it, come back to bite them in the ass because the movie is well on its way to losing about $100 million. It's had one of the worst openings for any superhero movie, performing less than films like. And this is funny because, these movies have apparently did better than what's it called, Supergirl. And this August list is perhaps the literal dregs of the superhero, sort of genre. This movie has done worse than the Marvels, Flash, and Morbius. I find that hilarious. I find that a movie that has James Gunn's seal of approval has done so poorly that movies like, as I just mentioned, The Marvels, The Flash, and Morbius did better in their opening weekends. So far, off of a budget of around $150 million production and about 120 million in marketing. So that's all about, almost 300 cumulatively. In its opening weekend, it only did 38 million domestically and about 60 million plus internationally. So that's just horrible. That's like really, really bad. And projections have that it's about to lose around 80 to $100 million. So considering that this is the DCU's second outing, I think it does not bode well for James Gunn, Peter Safran, and the DC Cinematic Universe. There's a lot to talk about, of course, on today's episode because, on the one hand, you have why the movie failed, but then on the other, you have where is the DCU going? Were James Gunn and Peter Safran the right people to be taking over this cinematic universe? And then, of course, what's in store for fans and audiences alike? So, first of all, the movie. Um, Admittedly, I have not watched it, and I do not plan on watching it in the cinema when it comes to streaming. Sure, I mean, sort of, I've watched so much shit over the years that I might as well watch this. But I had no interest in Supergirl. I have never had any interest in her as a character, which is why I don't think I've ever read a single comic book of hers. And while she was mildly interesting in like some of the animated series, not for example in My Adventures with Superman, where I found her kind of irritating, but in that Crisis on Infinite Earths, was that it? That the last, I think, animated DC animated one that they did before Gunn and Safran took over. In that, it was interesting. I liked her storyline. Other than that, I haven't even seen the original Supergirl. Like, I just don't like these derivative characters. Like, I don't think I would even watch a Superboy movie. So, I mean, it's no offense to her as a character or to Millie Alcock and Chris Gillespie and Anna Noguera who put this movie together. It's no offense to them. I've just never been interested in this. Like, would I watch? Actually, no. I only watched that movie, Madam Web, just to see how bad it was. But I don't think I had that level of Schadenfreude when it came to Supergirl. Okay, so admittedly, I haven't seen it, so I don't know how good or bad the movie is. But generally, critics and audiences alike have said it's a very middling movie. Um, I mean, the only thing that apparently shines are Millie Alcock and Jason Momoa, but other than that, not a great movie. Okay, number one. Um, of course, as they say, you celebrate victory and you analyze defeat. Now, of course, it's coming. There are revelations, disclosures. that, there were troubles behind the scenes during the production of this movie. And when I said initially that Gunn and Safran, particularly Gunn, because he's been extremely vocal, and I remember last year I even did a video on this prior to the release of his Superman, where I begged for this guy to just shut the fuck up. Because every 2 minutes, this guy was on social media trying to over explain or defend a creative choice or decision on his part. Like, he was getting into, like, the nitty gritties about the uniform, Superman's costume, and, like, sort of arguing with fanboys and stuff like that. I was like, it's so unbecoming of you. You're a filmmaker, you've got a number of successes under your belt, and now, rare that it is, as a filmmaker, you've gone on to become a studio head. So, like, focus on the product. That is all you need to shut the naysayers up. But again, this guy was very active online. And let's be honest, Superman was okay. Wasn't like an amazing movie. Even though I remember getting flack for my review of the film itself, I honestly did not think that Superman was a movie that revolutionized the superhero genre, or did something that maybe we hadn't yet gotten in the superhero sort of, in the Superman canon. Like, we had Christopher Reeve, then we had Snyder and all of that stuff. Um, and while this was, I think, clearly a reaction to the Snyderverse, I still don't think the movie was anything to write home about, despite its success at the box office. Okay. Now, James Gunn, and I agreed with him on this. In fact, I felt it from him when he was very adamant in saying that, sort of like, this studio that we've, come up with, this studio that we've created, Safran and himself, we're going to be very sort of like, understanding, sympathetic towards the filmmakers, towards the writers, because you can understand it from his perspective. He is just that. He's a filmmaker, he's a writer. And so, as a studio head, you could understand why he would sort of champion the filmmaker, the writer. But apparently, that wasn't the case on what's it called, Supergirl, because with a script from Anna Noguera and directed by Craig Gillespie. Sorry, I called him Chris Gillespie before. Craig Gillespie, whose previous what's it called, claim to fame was Margot Robbie's I, Tonya. Um, Apparently, now the script was written, all of that. They filmed it. Now, apparently, this Gillespie version, and we're going into that whole bullshit, release the Snyderverse cut and all of that stuff, blah blah blah, whatever. But apparently, that version in test screens did not do too well, right? So then what they did is that then the studio intervened, and by the studio, of course, this is Gunn, and not respecting the what's it called, filmmakers' vision, they did their own cut, right? In which apparently it's 11 minutes shorter. Um, and again, that was, what's it called, given to test audiences, and it won out by only 2 points. So, I mean, sort of 2 points is negligible. And apparently, the Gillespie version had, what's it called, a much more fleshed out villain, was 11 minutes longer, had different, what's it called, music, because apparently, and they keep on referring to it as like sort of the mic drop moment. And, Gunn is known for this. I mean, kind of like, it was his signature on Guardians. He kind of popularized the whole sort of like, soundtrack being like an integral part of the movie, um, in the superhero genre. But apparently using, where is it? Apparently the finale was supposed to have a, what's it called, Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and he replaced it with Jimmy Eat World's The Middle. and and again, both of these were his what's it called choices, but people haven't reacted too well to the Jimmy Eat World, the latter decision. Number one. Um, Now it kind of sucks that when you do have a studio head who publicly at least is saying that yes, we're respecting, like, what's it called, the filmmakers, and we're going to sort of, like, follow through on you know uh, their creative decisions and choices, where him saying that and doing something completely different. Now, according to the Hollywood Reporter and many others, Gunn brought in writer Jeremy Slater, who reportedly helped with write scenes for a 9-day reshoot. This is, of course, after Gunn et al. Felt that the movie wasn't working and they didn't like the Gillespie cut. The climactic fight was reconfigured. Original screenwriter Anna Noguera stayed involved, and the climactic fight was also reconfigured. That's kind of shitty. I mean, considering that this is somebody who said something quite different, and I would have understood if those decisions were made and they actually made the film better, but apparently they haven't. Now, whether or not we'll ever see the Gillespie cut is something else, but I think fundamentally it's neither Gunn's version that is great or Gillespie's version that is great. It's simply because the script wasn't that great. A lot of people, a lot of the critics, again, I will say this, I haven't seen the movie, but a lot of the critics are saying that one of the biggest weaknesses of the movie is the script. Now, what's it called? Again, famously, he said that we aren't going to go into a movie without the script being rock solid. And then, of course, him praising Anna Noguera's script, saying that it was beyond my sort of expectations, to paraphrase him. It just didn't work. And I will tell you why it didn't work, and we can get into that we'll get into that a little later. But clearly, there were problems, and they tried to address them. They were not addressed or resolved, and so you ended up with a movie that was, at least to my reckoning, was, I'm not going to say it was unworthy of being a movie, but, and this is a point that I'm going to make slightly later on, when you are kind of launching a new cinematic universe, you'd want to go with the one, the double tap, the 1-2 punch type thing, where, first you release you release Superman, and then you follow it up with something like Batman, something like Wonder Woman. Instead, you go with the very curious choice that is Supergirl, right? But one second, I'll expand upon this in a second. Let me just go to a couple of more points about this movie. Now, let me just get this quote out, because realizing that, okay, before that comes out, I just wanted to say one more thing. I think some of the flack is being given to Millie Alcock, which I think is unfair. I've seen a lot of, call them memes if you like, kind of calling her features into question and this, that, and the other. And that's unfair, right? I think that these are just fanboys hating on the fact that, what's it called? It's a woman. And again, they really like to pile on. I mean, really like to turn the knife when, like, sort of a female led or a female driven movie does poorly. I don't think that this has anything to do with the woman, with what's it called, the actress herself. She's a very good actress. She's proven herself in House of the Dragon, and I think off the back of that, she got this. And critics have said that she was really good. I think the blame for the failure of this movie lies squarely with, of course, first the script, Anna Noguera, Then the direction, again, having not seen the movie, I cannot fault it entirely. But then I think, and this is where we can get to that point. Okay, let me just quickly read this one thing out, and then I can get into sort of the main sort of thrust of this argument. Okay, so in response to, I mean, like the opening weekend, um, the studio has come out to say, after opening weekend, the message was, while Supergirl didn't meet our box office expectations, it's just one component of a broader long term strategy. So that is effectively them saying, yes, we fucked up. And hopefully, we now have more opportunities to perhaps forget this colossal mistake that we've made, and hopefully uh audiences will be there with us along the way. Now, and this is where I can get into sort of like, the main part, the central thesis of my argument. While I have not liked the attitude of both Gunn and Safran so far, one thing that has me very worried, right, about these guys is, again, a couple of minutes ago, I said, when you're building a cinematic universe and you have a stable of characters in DC that is as rich or perhaps richer, I don't know, than Marvel's, why in God's name would you want to follow up Superman with a film like Supergirl? Like, I get it. Sorry, like, I get it. The her cameo in the movie, which was entirely unexpected, right, in Superman, was like, oh, okay, cool. They've already selected her. What a surprise. We will see her somewhere down the line. And yet they announced that the next movie following Superman was going to be Supergirl. Why? What a poor decision. When you have Batman and Wonder Woman waiting in the wings, why would you kind of like, want to put out? And this isn't even like sort of a winter release, this movie. This isn't even like sort of a spring or autumn release. This is a summer release, If you're going to hedge your bets on a movie to do well, why in God's name would you do it with such a middling character like Supergirl? Like, yes, your average moviegoer will be able to put two and two together and say, okay, Supergirl, she must be in some way related to Superman, right? But other than that, what is your draw to watch this movie? A lot of non-fans are going to watch Superman. He's an iconic character. They've seen him for like the past, like almost 50 years. At any point, they're able to say, oh, maybe we watch like some of the animated series, or we caught Christopher Reeves, or maybe, he was on Lois and Clark and all of that stuff, or there was a comic book or anything like that. But is a far, is a secondary or even maybe a tertiary character. So I was very questioning of this decision on DCU's part to follow up Superman with Supergirl, right? Especially when Batman and Wonder Woman are nary to be seen. Now, to compound this bizarre release slate, right? And it's funny because there was, I think, somebody commenting on this, is that instead of like, doing a phase one, DCU is going to do is sorry, I haven't phrased that properly. Instead of doing a phase one, they've jumped to phase four, sort of alluding to Marvel by saying that, instead of focusing on the real like meat on the bones, they're dealing with like, the chumps, like they're dealing with shit like Clayface. Now, again, audiences like fans would readily, recognize Clayface because he's, from Batman's Rogues Gallery. But your average audience, cinema goer is like, who the fuck is Clayface? And why do I want to watch a movie about him? Like, I could get why then DC wanted to do a standalone Joker movie because, again, Joker is an iconic villain, right? I think it was the right decision on DC's part, and because Gunn and Safran had almost come in by then, to give Penguin, Colin Farrell's Penguin, from the Robert Pattinson Batman, to give him his own HBO Max series, which honestly restored kind of like, for me at least, was pointing in the right direction. I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is them taking like, it's the roll of a dice and it's come out, sixes, if that's, I think, the right thing. I don't know. Not very good on these dice or poker analogies. I'm sorry. But it was a great series. I loved what's it called Penguin. I thought it was fantastic, right? But I don't understand why you would want to give Clayface his own movie. When again, I'm saying this again, this is now going to be my fourth time. You have Batman and Wonder Woman just waiting in the wings. Now I understand. Gun is all like, until we do not have like a rock solid, what's it called, script, we are not going to go ahead and just put out a movie for like, putting out a movie's sake, which is a bit of a jab at Marvel, who, sort of was already by phase four, phase five, was putting out some very, very half baked productions, But we're already seeing that in sort of DC's phase one. So if Clayface doesn't have you worried, dig this. Now, this is more, and this is something that really I have, I'm scratching my head. Oh, shut up! I hate why. Be quiet. I hate how Instagram has just become everything has to have like music to it. Okay, DC's strategy remains intact. Okay, this is apparently the release slate for movies to come. So after Clayface, because we already know that Gunn is producing or is already working on, they're in pre-production. No, it's actually in production of Man of Tomorrow, which is the sequel to Superman. Following that, apparently there is a Jimmy Olsen series, DC Crime. We already have the trailer out for Lanterns, which I think is coming out later this year. And there's also a Mr. Terrific show that is going ahead. So this is where that comment kind of makes sense. Where instead of like, doing your phase one, these guys are, sort of bounding all the way to phase four. I don't understand this. I don't understand why Gunn and Safran are charting this course that is honestly very reminiscent of the mistakes that Marvel made. I get that something like Batman and Wonder Woman, first of all, need forget the script and all of that stuff. You need great casting there, right? You need to land on somebody who's foreseeably going to carry the studio for you. So that should take time. But that's exactly it. They should learn from the mistakes that Marvel made. Just because Marvel was ambitious enough to say that, yeah, we're going to be releasing 3 movies a year, right? And we're also going to be releasing at least 3 TV shows a year, doesn't mean that these guys have to follow suit. You released Man of Tomorrow last year. You released Superman last year. It did it. Sure, it made enough money to justify to warrant a sequel, but it wasn't a great movie. Let's be very honest here. Okay, this year you have Supergirl, which proof is in the pudding. It hasn't done well at all, right? It's going to be a commercial failure. Your TV shows, what do you have? I think you just have Lanterns because Peacemaker came out last year. You have Clayface, and I don't want to say it, but I have a very good feeling that even if the movie is good, it is not going to do well at the box office. And again, that is because it is a little known character. And even though horror movies have done gangbusters this year, I don't think that movie is going to do well. And again, it doesn't come from sort of this out of spite, out of wishing DC any ill. But I just don't think the movie's going to do is going to do well, right? And then you have lanterns. So this means that 2026 was a bit of a bust. It's okay. You didn't have to release anything in 2026. I'm sure there's pressure from the studio, release, release, release. We need to be out there. We need to be matching Marvel because, again, this is Marvel is hoping this is going to be sort of their comeback tour with, what's it called? Spider Man Brand New Day and Avengers Doomsday. But if they practice what they preach, Gunn and Safran, then the hope would have been that they would have stuck to, again, nailing solid scripts, rock solid scripts, finding the right cast, and then proceeding with movies and all of that stuff. And of course, this takes time. So I think that they kind of fell um, prey to that same thing that happened to Marvel, where there is pressure to create, there is pressure to release stuff to, the box office. And again, it's kind of done them in. They've shot themselves in the foot. Um, Another kind of worrying thing is that the same lady who wrote the Supergirl script is also writing the Wonder Woman script. Now, again, I'm no fan of Wonder Woman as a character. I didn't care less about sort of the Snyderverse Wonder Woman either. So it doesn't necessarily bother me, but I think that now maybe they need to like kind of reflect, take a moment, and say to themselves that maybe what we've been doing so far, and the thing is, Gunn has a very full plate. I mean, he did Superman, Creature Commandos, and Peacemaker. I'm not saying season two. I'm not saying he did all of these around the same time, but I mean, I would say he has a pretty full plate. What with writing all of this stuff and then also managing the studio as well. So maybe that's where he needs to take a step back as well. Because I'm not saying I am like sort of like, again, it's always been Marvel for me as opposed to DC, but like sort of like, somebody who kind of admires their rivals, you like when they do well. Like you kind of like, okay, okay, cool. You like it, right? And I think honestly, the only thing that we've ever gotten from DC that's ever been worthwhile is all of their animated stuff. And that's why I'm really, really glad that at least with what's it called, Gunn and Safran coming on board, they didn't entirely shelve it. And so we are getting, like, for example, Batman Nightfall. I think the trailer is out and we should be getting that movie sometime soon. But all in all, as a DC fan, you should be very worried. I know a lot of you were very encouraged by the fact that Gunn came on board because, again, he did some very interesting things over at Marvel. And, that same sort of energy was, pardon me, was hoped at least to revitalize a failed DC. But 2026 at least is a year that I feel, they've kind of tripped over themselves and it's very premature considering they're only just getting started. So again, as a DC fan, you should be very concerned. And I'm only hoping that they learn from this and we finally get a cinematic universe that does justice to DC.